Do we have any hands up yet? Oh my goodness. Word. Right, we'll start over there. I've got one at the back and then two near the front. So the gentleman at the back, if you would. So he managed to get in there first. I don't think I can't hear you at the moment, so do you want to hang on?
She's got the wrong mic.
Try again.
My name's Justin Waite.
I'm sorry, can you put it right by your mouth because we can't hear it? That's it. Yeah.
My name's Justin Waite.
Hello, Justin.
The main driver for quality and standards is the government, and the government failed to act after Lacanau. If we start acting as an industry on our own, are we not going to end up with an incoherent response?
That's, should we act on our own as an industry, or do we not need the government?
We do.
Do you need more than a one-word response to that?
Yeah, that's why.
Yes, we do. Does anybody else want to comment on it?
Could I just say, we do, and we are. So there is a lot of work going on in government, as I was alluding to. There's a lot of work going on in industry. I think without the pairing of that, we can't actually achieve success. This is bigger than government or industry. So I think to achieve success, we absolutely have to have change across the board.
It's the point, isn't it? Yes. There's a lady in the end here. Yeah, it's actually two of you both had your hands up next to each other, so that makes life easy. If you want to point a question to anybody here, you may name them or a general question.
Okay, I'd like to address the whole panel.
Oh.
Does the panel not feel that Grenfell, as well as previous experiences of disasters with fire, have shown that society is divided and we have to take seriously the need for political change, not just disciplinary change in our own building construction disciplines? We need, for example, our experience of deregulation, the 2005 Fire Deregulation Act has been, and other forms of self-regulation and voluntary control have been disastrous. Is it not the case that we do need firm state, national, local policemen, properly funded, employed by local authorities, and responsibility for inspection returned to respective fire services?
Thank you. It's a very good point. Would anybody like to come in? I expect we'd all probably want to make something, Richard. Just speak, you'll come alive.
I think they've turned me off, so that's maybe good. But look, I agree with that. So there's two sides to it. Having been in the industry as long as I am, I'm always disappointed when we have to be regulated on to actually make change. And we only have to look at the slide that my colleague put up there around the sustainability and the journey to carbon neutral, which then got scrapped by the coalition, which means the majority of the developers then went back to the lowest common denominator they could, which was the lowest way to build. So the challenge with our industry, we're always going to find those who actually strive, and those who are always going to, I'm going to say, bottom feed. And we're maybe seeing a little bit too much bottom feeding going on at present. So unfortunately, the need for legislation and policing is sometimes required. And I'm always going to use the analogy, and I use this on a regular basis, that an average aeroplane has 2 million components in it. That's 2 million components. And we'll get on a plane and fly at 30,000 feet, never considering the conversation around quality control, snagging, and all of those good things. Yeah? We don't even think of it, and that industry doesn't even talk about it. It doesn't exist. But somehow in our industry, we think it's all right to build products with defects, to design things incorrectly, do things unsafely, and cut corners. And the aeroplane industry has recognized that if they behaved like sometimes our industry does, they'd be dead tomorrow. They wouldn't exist, okay? I just don't get why our industry, when we build for consumers and customers, cannot do the same thing without being legislated on. So I'm in agreement. I think we do need policing, and I do definitely think there's investment needed there. But I would hope the industry, through cultural change, like safety, we've seen less HSE inspectors over the last 10 years, and the industry has improved dramatically. But at present, we probably do need a little bit of policing, especially in what I'm going to call the bottom feeding side of the industry.
Robin, you want to come in?
I generally agree with what you're saying, but I think the key thing, thinking about aeroplanes, is they need a lot of maintenance. They have very regular maintenance, and we like to build buildings and then forget about them. And that doesn't work, particularly with housing. And so I think that there's, yes, I agree, but there's another similar difference with the construction, with the aircraft, which is that if you're an aircraft designer, you have an absolute obligation to admit to any mistake. If you wake up in the morning and think, my God, I made a mistake yesterday, you have a duty, a blame-free duty to admit it. We have professional indemnity insurance that will make sure that we won't ever admit to any mistakes, and so we never learn.
Thank you. That was an extraordinarily good question. The gentleman sitting next to has got the microphone already. Sorry, Simon.
Hello, my name is Thomas Denhoff. I'm an architect and a passive house designer. I just wanted to make a point about Richard Cook's statement about the right thing for the community. In that respect, I would like to have a look at one of the previous projects of Lendlease, which is the complete demolition and redevelopment of the Haygate property, or development, which I think resulted in a 25% profit, accounting for £300 million. When it comes to the community, that community doesn't exist anymore because none of the former residents still live in the area. This is social cleansing at a massive scale, you know, with a thumbs up from the local Labour Council. So that's the reality we are facing. People don't have the chance to be asked for a ballot, whether what's good for them. It's all driven by the privatized, neoliberal, greedy, capitalist agenda. And if we don't tackle that, we will not do anything good on climate change. We have to tackle inequality and the neoliberal agenda fed by greed and just feeding into the 1% at the top. That's the main problem. Climate change cannot be tackled without tackling these two major problems we are facing.
Thank you.
Get rid of this government. That's the other big thing we have to do. There's no sustainability possible in construction.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to do that today, but I take your point. We have to accept that what you say is the right thing, but I don't think this is a specific question for the panel today. But you've had your say. There's a gentleman here in glasses on the front row. And then we had 2 or 3 more on this side.
Thank you very much. Michael Stock from Imperial College. About 18 months ago, I was doing some research with the National Audit Office on Homes 2050. And one of the things I remember well, looking through the documents, on the abolition of the Code for Sustainable Homes, bears out completely what Robin and others have said, which was, I found, a cavalier approach to risk. The impact assessments done by DCLG on the abolition of the Code for Sustainable Homes said nothing except economics. And my proposal would be this, that the government, whether it's Brexit or the Code for Sustainable Homes, must get a grip on risk and publish impact assessments at the right time. It is difficult to underestimate the urgency of this at a time of what others, such as David Orr, have described as the long emergency resulting from climate change.
I'm not absolutely certain that was a question, but it was a very good, strong statement. Could I ask for questions for our panel? We'll take another 3, and then we'll round up. So, gentleman in front row.
Martin Vallerton, let me phrase this as a question. Yeah. We have a lot of building regulations. We have a lot of things to do with fire. We have a lot of things to do with energy. In my opinion, the building regulations are rather poor on toxic substances in buildings. And it hasn't been very much covered in the media, but from my reading of what has been in the media about the Grenfell fire, there's widespread cyanide poisoning in North Kensington because of the isocyanate insulation that was used on the cladding. You know, if we want, you know, one thing to come out of this gathering, could we recommend that we have we take poisonous substances more seriously in the building regulations?
I don't know if anybody wants to come in on that. Perhaps that's one for you, Peter.
Thank you. I absolutely agree, and I think that's work in progress. I think there's a lot of work going on in Europe about toxic substances. Different countries have already agreed different standards, certainly on VOCs. So absolutely, yes, I think we should push for much better work on that. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Right, there's a gentleman that got the microphone already, and then there was another gentleman behind you, and I think that's where we're probably going to have to stop it for now.
My name's Edmund Hollinghurst.
I know there's a million questions. Could you speak up?
My name's Edmund Hollinghurst. Can I just ask the panel, and I'll phrase it as a question, how should affordability, both social and individual, be taken into this review? Because it's a major factor on the outturn.
How should affordability be what?
Is affordability a major issue? I'm going to ask you, Paula, if you would, and then...
Of course. I didn't quite hear this. So is affordability a major issue? I mean... And
how can it be taken into the review?
How do you take it into account?
The affordability of housing.
Both for the individual and social.
Yes, I mean, you know, the difficulty, and this is where we have the, you know, the gentleman here about the social side of it. If you've got people who can't afford to be in, you know, reasonable houses, whatever like that. And what we've been doing is that we're relying on some big house builders to provide a public good. So we don't have the numbers. We're not getting the numbers through. And the national house building's dropped off the last 30 years. So we're asking for the private sector to build more and build quickly. And that's just not working for us. And that's, you know, the main thing is the supply and demand that we need to get. Houses should be for living in. They shouldn't be for investment. They shouldn't be for that you make more money off your house than you go to work. It shouldn't be that you go and live in, you know, you rent it out for an investment. So that's where the whole fundamental, we want a sustainable housing market where houses are being provided for people to live in and to work and to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last question then from the gentleman there who's got the microphone, and I'll ask the panel if they'd be kind enough to stay for 5 minutes afterwards, because I'm sure, as long as you don't bombard them.
I won't. Good afternoon. Jerry Dalden, I'm a building surveyor. Coming back to Robin's point, through my career, I've seen it move from the traditional form of procurement where the surveyor, the architect, designed it and then managed it on site and gave instructions. And then it moved more to the contractor, took more and more responsibility for what was specified, how it was done, and what went on site, and our role was more like an advisor. Do you think this has led to the problems we're getting in Grenfell, where the contractors have taken the original design and then changed it, often with cost saving in mind, and then they've self-managed it or used outsourced building control, who's kind of in their pocket a little bit because they're paying them, to actually sign off the work?
I would say we'll ask the panel this. I don't think we can in any way discuss this in terms of Grenfell. There is an inquiry going on, and the answers for that one. Then. But generally, who would like to come in on this one? There's a few nodding. Lynne, there's a good one. Come on in on this one. It's our last question. Let's get...
I think the question was addressed to you, I think, Robin, first of all.
Go on then.
I mean, I think that none of us come out of this smelling of roses. But it does start with the client, and particularly a public sector client, who is not getting the right advice. And if you buy in that advice, that's not a long-term, sustainable relationship. There needs to be an informed client, whether public or private, that actually understands the game that they're playing, and then they can manage the process. If you constantly offlay the risk and architects are part of that process, then there will be problems. There have been problems. And I think that it's the same with the private sector as it is with the public sector.
Sorry, if I may then, Jane.
Yeah, last comment. You can have the last word. How's that?
It has been said that our industry spares no expense to get something on the cheap, because I think actually we've forgotten how to invest in quality in buildings, and that would give us value long term. And if you look at all the statistics, not only in number of deaths from Grenfell, but it's waste statistics and all the rest of it, actually we're not getting value. We need to re-establish what value is, and then clearly define the value proposition in terms of quality, and we can deliver it.
Right. I am really sorry that we haven't got another couple of hours, because I suspect this issue is too big to be dealt with in a short period of time. Our duty this afternoon is to come up with 3 proposals. I'll tell you the 3 that I've scribbled down, and I'd be quite interested to see if we had a few nods in the audience. I think there's no question my number 1 is that the government actually has to take some responsibility with the industry. It isn't just the industry's issue. The industry, of course, has got to be more collaborative, but I do think the government's got to take responsibility, and that means we need some really, really reappraised regulations, some decent legislation which is going to lead us to a better future. So, does anybody want to tweak that?
No.
Anybody agreeing?
Any nods?
We can have some hands. Let's do it. It's like at school. Go on then.
Show hands. Come on.
Show of hands. Right, we've got that one.
Right.
Very good.
Passed.
The next thing I think that's come out is, without question, if we're going to get quality, and quality is what we're talking about,
Delivered.
We need it delivered.
Yeah, and verified.
I want it delivered, quality, verified, and for all of the outcomes we've talked about today. For people, for our built environment, and for the one word that I heard Richard used, was legacy. We are talking about legacy. We're talking not just about a built environment, but we're talking about legacy, our children and their children, and what are they going to inherit. So for me, that's really important. We've got to stop looking at saving the cost today. We've got to look at our legacy. Is that right?
Yep.
Can they have a show of hands?
Hands up. Come on, more.
More. If you don't agree, I'll be interested. Right. I have another one in here which I thought was quite good. But it's quite difficult because they're all the same, really. They will just say, we've got to take action, we've got to risk. All right, the last one is risk. Risk has to be understood. We need the data to give us the background. We need the evidence. We need to work on it together so we share the risk and move forward. Is that right?
Yeah, go for that one.
Right, okay. That looks like we've got some consensus, actually, but the one thing that we need to do, and I've got to find my little paper, here it is I've got to put you a question. No, that's not the right paper. Here it is. What's the one thing that government could do to help construction deliver the goals? Well, we've given them 3. Right, one sentence from each of you. What thing could the government do to help the construction industry deliver our goals?
I think there needs to be accountability.
Thank you.
So accountability. Government needs to get redress sorted and accountability, so for people to put things right.
Peter, one word.
Implement in full the Dame Judith Hackett review.
In full.
Immediately. Sooner than that, if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say verify the outcomes of all building projects.
So we want our buildings in the future to do what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not flying that tin, but we're living in it.
I was going to add to that by saying public funding for the verification of the performance of buildings.
Very good.
That's going to be a good one. Yes, Richard.
And mine is continuously raise the bar for the industry. Don't be satisfied with where we are today. We're planning for where we need to be.
Is this the government?
This is government giving us clear guidance and a route map to where they want us to be, because our industry doesn't react at the fastest pace. So we can then work towards the increased goal that is set. Yeah.
Excellent. May I ask you to thank our panel? I think they were a great insight into our potential future.